Welcome to the 20th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com. Between them, they've covered Penn State football for 70 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ Sports Director Alex Colley, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By The Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solani provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State! By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
Welcome to the NitWits, where for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be breaking down the roller coaster that was Penn State's 39-38 loss to Ohio State. To do that, we have Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror, FightOnState.com's Mark Brennan, and joining us in the chair this week, former Penn State offensive lineman Keith Conlon.
What's going on, guys?
Good to see you, Keith.
Good to be
Thanks
back.
For coming down, yeah.
Nitwit of the year again, right?
Every
Of the
year
week.
for you.
Well, up until the last final few minutes, this was going to be a vastly different show, but as we're looking at it right now, a lot of answers for this question. But what are some of the major determinants for the loss in this one?
Well, I think that Penn State just they left the door open. And you can't do that in Columbus against a great team. And I think that's the real frustrating part for all of them in the Penn State camp. They could not have slept that well, just knowing that everyone could have done a little bit more. Both sides of the ball, special teams, even though they made some plays, they just gave Ohio State too much life at the end, didn't close it.
I remember there was a coach who used to say sometimes you have to give the other guy credit, and I think that's the case here. That's not to take away from some of the issues Penn State had, but when you have a guy like J.T. Barrett playing the way he did, that was unbelievable. So my take on this game is that I don't know that anybody could argue that the better team won. The better team won that game.
Yes.
Ohio State's a better team. Where you should be disappointed if you're a Penn State fan is you get very few opportunities to steal this kind of game. Penn State did a great job of capitalizing on mistakes and poor coaching by Ohio State, to be frank with you. And when it got down to it, wasn't able to kind of push it through the end zone that one last time. So you have to give Ohio State credit, but Penn State had an opportunity to do something special here and didn't come through when it needed to.
You know, like Mark just said, I mean, you got to give credit to Ohio State, and 100%. I mean, they won the game rather than Penn State losing that game, in my opinion. They did what they had to do. They went out there, scored a lot of points in the fourth quarter. I guess a pretty good Penn State defense, and you know, one of my keys going into the game was making J.T. Barrett throw the ball, beat him, let him beat us with his arm and not running the ball. And I guess he proved me pretty wrong, huh?
Well, not just you. It was everybody.
Yeah, you're right.
It was 16 in a row and 420 yards plus of total offense. But, you know, as you drill down on this, and we can, you know, obviously Ohio State does deserve credit, and they really responded when they kind of saw their own blood. But, you know, to me, I was a little bit more disappointed in the Penn State offense because I think the defense is somewhat limited and has had injuries up front and is still pretty inexperienced. The offense has returned all these parts, and there were, you know, maybe 3 sequences there that I think they lost their character as far as being a real aggressive team. Down at the 7, when they played for the field goal to get the second score, which you had to make sure you got up 2 scores, but they didn't throw the ball to their top targets in the end zone. And, you know, after they got the fumble, there just were about 3 sequences where they weren't real aggressive offensively, I didn't think.
Yeah, I would agree with that part of it, but I want to be clear about one thing. Once Bates was out, that was a gigantic difference. And I think, listen, these are big boys, and these are guys who have played a lot of football now. I was surprised that Chaz Wright didn't maybe play a little bit better. And I don't like to be critical of individual players, but when he came in, the drop-off, as they had to move people around, Fries you have to give the benefit of the doubt because he's really young, but Chaz Wright has played in some big games and played well for them at times. I don't know if he's still bumped up or what happened, but the drop-off there, we had all these people on our message board toward the end of the game saying, why were you doing this and why couldn't they block? Well, you lost your best offensive lineman, and everybody else didn't respond. It's just that simple. You still have a very young offensive line other than man, and when you took Bates out of there, it really limited what you were able to do, and we saw that on those last couple possessions.
What are you seeing on the offensive line or not seeing? Because it seems a lot of the problems are starting there.
Well, I mean, if you look at Barkley, when he has his most success is when he's getting out in the open. Returning kicks, taking swing passes, screen passes. They're not allowing him to get ahead of steam, get into the line of scrimmage. So he's taking the ball at a standstill and having to try to make a move before he even has the ball. So he's not really being able to work in space and make his moves, and it really, really hampered us with losing Bates last night. As soon as it happened, I was watching the game, and people were like, what are you mad about? And I said, well, watch. And then they zone in, and they show Bates get hurt, and I said, that's going to hurt us a lot. I knew it as soon as it happened because he is our best offensive lineman. And then, we needed a tough yard. We run to the left side this year, and we needed a couple tough yards, and then in this game we couldn't do it.
And I will say, again, you have to give that defensive front, and Larry Johnson did a great job getting those 4 defensive ends in there. They've given everybody a lot of trouble. But, Neil, you're exactly right. Coming into this year, and I think we've discussed this, everybody thought the offensive line was going to be a strength. I think we overlooked a little bit how still relatively young it was. And then you lose a guy like Nelson, who it looks like he's out of the mix. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that is what it is at this point. That offensive line is good enough to beat most teams, but against a team as good as Ohio State, and Shiana was talking about this being the best defensive line he's ever had at any level, which is ridiculous, but it's still an outstanding defensive line and obviously gave them a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I was looking for just a little bit more creativity that we had seen before. They are so aggressive in certain situations. They're still taking a snap with 3 seconds to go against Michigan and some of the late game things, but you saw it against USC also. They're not closing games and I think that's been a little bit of a pattern that's developed against these elite teams that they're aspiring to be. You didn't see anything really off the Wildcat. They tried it one time.
Tommy Stevens. I mean, where was Tommy Stevens? And,
right.
And James Franklin's argument would be, well, if I put Tommy Stevens in, then who am I taking out? And a lot of times they take out Gesicki, but there were a few plays where they had to run Holland in there. Listen, Tommy Stevens, when you're facing a defense that good and you're having trouble getting things working, that guy's a weapon. He makes people really pay attention, and I was a little surprised after some of the things we saw. We have to be careful about what we saw in practice, but I was a little surprised we didn't see some more of Tommy Stevens. And I think moving forward, that's a guy, when they're having trouble, I think he's such a multiple threat. Get him in there, and maybe it makes people pay a little bit more attention. And not all the time, but pick your spots.
All right, well, we're going to take our first time out here, but when we return, we're going to have much more on the clash in Columbus when the NitWits returns.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name.
We now return to the NitWits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
Welcome back to the NitWits. Getting back to yesterday's game, are there any areas that concern you stemming from what you saw yesterday that maybe are going under the headlines?
Well, you said about Barkley from a standing position. Mm-hmm. There were a few times in short yardage where they banged him right up in the middle on a quick hitter, and he made a couple first downs.
He could fall forward for 4 or 5 yards every time.
I didn't understand 2nd and 2 from midfield after they got Johnson made that nice move up the sideline. They moved the ball out. They were 35-20 at that point, 2nd and 2. They tried to throw the ball to Gesicki in the flat. It was set up, but if they would have banged Barkley in there twice, probably got a first down, moved the clock, maybe moved into field goal range. He just seems like you're not getting him in a forward motion enough. Talk about from a lineman standpoint.
No doubt. Think about if you saw Saquon Barkley in the power I formation with a fullback.
Yeah.
Taking a toss.
Here we go.
What's so sacrilegious about that?
It's Coach Moorhead's offense, and I understand it. He is what it is, and he's an unbelievable coach. He's doing a great job. I have no problem with that. But it would be great to see him take a pitch like a Kijana Carter or a Curtis Enos, get a little head of steam, go around right end, and see what a linebacker, see if he can outrun a linebacker or have a safety come up and try and take him on one-on-one. I mean, I would like to see it. I doubt where we're going to see it, but if that's something that could change us late in the game to finish people out, then why aren't we doing it?
Well, I wonder because you're seeing him dance so much that at the 5-yard line he circled back and almost danced himself into a safety.
Yeah, and he's an unbelievable player.
Well,
I think he knows he can't do that. I mean, I think that's something where he was just trying too hard, and it's one of those things where they're going to look at film and he's not going to do that. Going along with you guys are saying, the delay stuff against these teams with great D lines, they must have some, stats or something that back this up, but you just visually, it's like, how is this supposed to work when it's such a delay? I mean, we do see it popping from time to time, but how many times against these teams with a lot of speed and that kind of defensive line do we see them try to do that delay stuff and it doesn't work? And the other thing I would say is defensively, and Franklin's hit on this, their ability to step up defensively after sudden changes, that is so strange because usually they play well defensively, they get tough, and it's just been one of those things that after a turnover or something goofy happening, they just seem to lose their focus. And that's great defenses. If you want to be a great defense, you got to get over that.
Well, they're having trouble covering over them. It happened in the Rose Bowl too, where the tight ends are getting loose or the backs on
better athletes,
beyond the linebackers. I want to get back to offense one more time.
Fullback.
The guy that is Blacknall. Blacknall, I think, has been the most underused player they've had. He was the star of the Big Ten championship game, real rangy type of target. They hit him after they hit the Gesicki. He takes you down to the 7. I just wonder why I don't think he's got 8 or 10 catches all year.
Well, didn't Tompkins have a TD catch in that game?
He
I
did.
mean, that's who's playing instead of him. So, we see 10 minutes of practice a week. And that's one of the tough things. I understand what you're saying, Neil, but I doubt that they're not playing, that they're not smart enough to be playing their best players. I just don't think, so who the heck knows why, what's going on? Are these other guys just outplaying him? I don't know, but I can't imagine that they're going into a game saying, you know what, Blacknall, we're just not going to play him this game. We know he could do stuff. I think they must think they have better players out there.
Now, I have a question for you. I mean, I'm seeing highlights of JT Barrett throw all over us in the fourth quarter. Did the Heisman Trophy cross the field last night from Saquon Barkley to JT Barrett?
Well, it puts Barrett in the conversation.
It really
for
does.
Sure.
He look at his stats the last 5-6 weeks since an Oklahoma game. They're unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, Barkley is a tremendous player. I think we would agree he's the greatest running back that we have seen at Penn State. We've seen great ones, but he's been under 100 yards rushing 5 of the 8 games this year.
Right. Well, and it goes back to the offensive line, and that everybody knows that if you have any chance to stop Penn State, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to not let that guy beat you. And to his credit, he says all the right things after the games. In terms of the Heisman, it's still way too early for that. I mean, this stuff never plays out until you get late into November, and then you start to see who really is able to get things done. I think the benefit for Barkley is he's going to end up getting through this stretch, knock on wood, you hope he gets through healthy, but he's not had a complete dud of a game. Every single game he's done something, had 1 or 2 eye-popping plays that when you get to, when the rubber meets the road in early December, people are making these decisions, they're going to go back and look, well, did he really just have a terrible game? And I don't think he has. I mean, he didn't have a great game, but he still had some eye-popping plays against OSU.
This was the first game where we really saw injuries mount this season for PSU. If they're out a significant period of time, who's stepping up?
Well, I mean, Shaka Tony's got to really step up for playing defensive end. I was just talking to you guys in the break there that, you know, he's going to have the Aaron Maben syndrome, and that's when people are going to run the ball at him. He's 240 pounds playing defensive end in the Big Ten. You know, we got 4 games left. We got to see, you know, we got to get somebody out there to make to put pressure on the quarterback, which is his job, but also stop the run. And it's a big. Someone's got to step up in that position.
I don't think he's going to be the starter. I don't think he's big enough to do it. I mean, he's terrific at rushing the passer. I would love to see them just move Givens over there because it looks like Buckholz is going to be out a while. You know, you feel for that kid. But they're going to have to do something because you need an every down player where you could let Tony specialize. And in terms of Bates, you know, I have to imagine that if he's going to be out now at the end of the game, he was down there on the sideline.
He did play. Remember, he came back in the game.
He did,
for a couple
and he was on the sideline.
Yeah,
he
but
was
he didn't
encouraging.
finish the game.
No, he's not.
But he was encouraging his teammates. He didn't look as if he looked as if he was relatively okay.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever that means. But if he is out, I honestly think they have to think about Brendan Mann moving back to tackle.
He played well at tackle last year.
And their argument is that if you do that, then you're moving all these other guys. Listen, that's a key position, as we saw.
Yeah.
I would love to see them get, if Bates is out, hope the kid's able to come back because he's a heck of a player. But if he's out, I would like to see Mann back at that left tackle position.
All right, well, it's halftime here on the Nitwits. When we return, we're going to turn our attention to some of the things the Nittany Lions had working for them in Columbus. We'll be right back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solaney provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State. By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
Hi, this is Massimo Manca, class of 1987, member of the 1982 and 1986 national championship teams. You're watching the Nitwits.
Massimo, that's right. Friend of the show this season. We've given our critiques of the performance from Penn State, but what aspects did we like from the Nittany Lions?
Well, we thought McSorley played a good game. You know, particularly getting them started well. Some really, really tough runs. You know, as Mark said earlier, he was only sacked a couple times against a great rush. I think it kind of starts with him as far as a pretty even performance. Played well enough to win.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the people would look at maybe some of the incompletions toward the end of the game, and I would put that more on the O-line. I'm sorry to keep beating up the O-line because I know they were banged up, but he was scrambling for his life, and we were out there, and McSorley, the way the crowd was reacting to him, he was driving them absolutely nuts, scrambling for first downs and, you know, hitting plays. And he's the kind of guy that if he's on your team, you love him, and if he's on the opposing team, you just hate him. He is such a tough kid, and I thought he played very well in that game. It's counted for 3 touchdowns. I don't think his yardage totals maybe indicate how well he played.
The bottom line is that, you know, this offense is going to go as Trace McSorley goes. Teams are going to stop Saquon Barkley and do everything in their power to stop him, and we're going to go as McSorley goes. And tough rush yesterday, tough game, and you know, one of the biggest positives is going out of this game is I think these guys are not going to play a harder game all year. I mean, Ohio State is a damn good football team, very good football team, and we're not going to see anything like that the next 4 games and possibly into a bowl game. So we know what we have to do as a team. So I think positives going forward we're good to go, I think.
I mean, it's still 4 years into the Franklin era. You know, I think that, you know, things went so well over the last year and a half that, you know, people got conditioned to they're always going to win or they're always going to have a chance to win. They are losing wildly entertaining games when they have lost. But, you know, it also shows you to get to the national championship level, which Ohio State is. You know, there's still a little bit of a separation between Ohio State and the rest of, say, the Big Ten.
Franklin said that after the game.
Yeah.
I mean, athletically, they're almost there, but you can see they just have to get a little bit more veteran, a little bit more talent on the O and D lines. And listen, I mean, as you said, Neil, They lost at Ohio State by 1 point.
Right.
I mean, let's put some perspective on it. A difficult loss, but I think it actually says something when fans are riled up about it and upset, that it tells you that the program, it's not quite back all the way, but it's getting very close, and you can see where it could get even better. So I know you want to talk about.
We only have a couple years of high-level recruiting versus Ohio State has been doing that for 10 or 15 years.
You
now.
brought up the bowl game, so
Yep.
what does this mean for the playoff picture now?
Well, it would have been a little bit easier if we'd won the game. We could control our own destiny, but there's so much football to be played. I mean, there's so many of the top 10 have to play each other still in the playoff games. Rivalry games play a huge thing into it. You know, I would not overlook Auburn over Alabama type of game. Georgia's got to play Alabama. Florida State, I mean, Miami's got to play Notre Dame. I mean, there's so much that can happen right now. Mark said, nose of the grindstone. We can win one game a week. That's it. You got 4 more to go.
Notre Dame's a wild card, and the fact that Oklahoma has already come into Ohio State and won. If Oklahoma wins, that league has been shut out of the playoffs so far, so that may be a factor as well.
And this is where I think Franklin's won, you know, as much as it might not bother people, but you get sick of hearing 1 week at a time this is where it matters. Because if you lose focus on Michigan State, you're not going to have to worry about any playoff. So as you know, as we're talking, keep the nose to the grindstone, take care of your business. If everything else works out, great. If it doesn't, you're still going to end up in a great bowl.
All right, well, when we return, we're going to turn our attention to Penn State's trip to East Lansing this weekend. The Nitwits will be right back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot, or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
Both Penn State and Michigan State are coming off of a loss, so who do we see bouncing back with the W? Starting with our Nitwit of the week.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I have to go
Protocol.
first. There's a lot of pressure. You know, this Michigan State team, they've played well at times, but I go back to that Michigan game where Michigan turned it over 5 times, Michigan State no times, and Michigan still nearly won the game. Penn State's done a really nice job of bouncing back after tough losses under Franklin. I think they're going to be able to do it again. I will go with Penn State 35, Michigan State 21.
Okay, I'll go next. Michigan State's had trouble scoring about pretty much everybody. Notre Dame blew them out. They generally score in the teens. This is a character test for Penn State. Their leadership, they're injured. I'm going to say Penn State 31, Michigan State 14.
Jeez, not bad. I think that I watched that Michigan State game, and I overhyped both of those teams, in my opinion. After watching this past weekend, watching Michigan last weekend, Michigan State now, but 35-14. So a combination of your guys' scores right there.
Wow.
Penn State.
All right, and I'm going to go with 40-17 Penn State. We're going to look at our Nitwit of the Year standings, and Mark Brennan gets the ball. Now tied
blind
with
squirrel.
the host.
Blind
He's
squirrel.
the only one to go with the Buckeyes, so we'll find out how everyone fares next week. Thank you for watching, and thank you guys
Keith.
for joining us.
Hey.
We'll catch you back here next Sunday.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solani provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State! By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot, or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. by FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.